Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, we have a ton of WWE news stories to get into today. So let's get straight into today's stories. And as you can see on the screen there, it's being advertised that Edge and Sasha Banks are due to return to Friday Night SmackDown on the very special July 16 episode, when of course fans are going to be returning to WWE programming for the first time since the pandemic, or since WrestleMania, but certainly on a regular basis since the beginning of the pandemic. With WWE's return to touring, it looks like Sasha Banks and Edge are set to return. This comes from advertisements at the arenas for the show. We're getting back to that point. Doesn't that feel like a million years ago? That you would see things maybe spoiled ahead of time because WWE would send the advertisements to the arenas would advertise it too early, all that kind of stuff, and you would see stuff maybe a little bit earlier than expected. I remember, for instance, when The Fiend was going to be facing Seth Rollins at the Hell in a Cell event back in 2019, all those a million years ago back in 2019, and we knew The Fiend was going to be competing for the Universal Championship months in advance because the arena in which Hell in a Cell was going to be taking place in that year was advertising it ahead of time. I kind of had forgotten a little bit, to be honest, about all that kind of stuff where the arenas advertise things ahead of time, and then WWE has to scramble, and they have to. You get an indication of where WWE's going with that. I forgot all about that. I had. So it looks like WWE Hall of Famer Edge is scheduled to make his return to WWE this summer. A new WWE website advertisement for the July 16 episode of SmackDown on Fox from the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas, is listing Edge, Sasha Banks, Universal Champion Roman Reigns, SmackDown Women's Champion Bianca Belair, SmackDown Tag Team Champions Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio, and Big E for the show. Now, of course, the July 16 episode of SmackDown will mark WWE's return to touring with fans in attendance. It's going to be the first city of a 25-city tour for WWE. Now, when it comes to Edge, of course, Edge hasn't been seen since appearing at WrestleMania 37 in the triple threat main event of the show that saw Roman Reigns retain the Universal Championship over Edge and Daniel Bryan, whereas Sasha Banks, she has not wrestled since losing the SmackDown Women's Championship to Bianca Belair at WrestleMania 37. Now, there's no word yet on if they will be brought back to TV ahead of the July 16 show or if the return is going to be taking place at the July 16 show. We'll have to wait and see. So I think, to be honest, it's expected, and like I said, if anything, it's a good problem to have once again. I remember a lot of complaints, wasn't there, by fans previously about these arenas advertising thing ahead of time, and people used to get so frustrated with it. Oh, why are they ruining these things? They're ruining the surprises, all that kind of stuff. It's a good problem to have. Having the fans back in attendance, I have no problem with it. I have no problem with it at the moment. It will grow old quickly. But as far as Edge returning, I think it was a given. I know some people are going after WrestleMania, where's Edge? Well, I can't believe Edge isn't on television. You have to remember the contract that he has. He has a similar deal to these other part-time superstars, whether it's Brock Lesnar, whether it's Goldberg, in the sense that he has a certain number of dates per year. He has a certain number of dates to appear on television, and he has a certain amount of matches per year to have. Now, fortunately, I guess for WWE, because of Edge's injury last year, a lot of the dates that they had last year for televisions and for matches, obviously he was unable to do for injury. So they rolled over to this year, hence why he was able to wrestle on Monday Night Raw, on SmackDown, an appearance on NXT, all that kind of stuff. He was able to do that because they were the dates that he had for last year that WWE hadn't used yet. So why not use them? So I think it makes sense for Edge to appear on this show, to return when fans are in attendance. That's what Edge really came back for. He came back for the roar of the crowd. You could see how happy he was at WrestleMania last year because, again, this whole big journey of his and coming back from the injury, coming out of retirement, getting cleared once again to medically compete, all that kind of stuff, all of that hard work he did. How many appearances did he make in front of a live crowd? 3, I think, or 4. There was one at the Rumble, one the next night after the Rumble, one when he returned to Raw to attack Randy Orton. I think that was like the last Raw before they went to the Performance Center, and then WrestleMania. So he's only made 4 appearances, as far as I'm aware, in front of a crowd. And he must be thinking, oh man, I did all this hard work and I still can't appear in front of a crowd. That's nuts. So obviously he's one of WWE's big hitters. And when it comes to WWE's part-time talent, they don't have a ton of them left at this point. You know, previously it was, we've got The Undertaker, we've got Shawn Michaels, we've got The Rock, we've got John Cena, and we've got all of these guys. And slowly but surely they started to drop off a little bit now. I don't know if Triple H is going to wrestle anytime soon. I don't know the situation with John Cena. The Undertaker's retired, and all of these names are sort of slowly dropping off, aren't they? Brock Lesnar's not under contract, so they're going to load up that show. I mean, there's rumors about John Cena returning. I saw WrestleVotes tweeted something today, very cryptic, that some people are assuming is in reference to John Cena. So it makes sense to load up their show and bring those big names back. As far as Sasha Banks goes, I wouldn't be surprised if she does return ahead of time. When that is, I don't know. If maybe she just take the rest of the time off and does something in July. I don't know what the situation is with her right now in terms of The Mandalorian. Is that in production right now? That might be a case of why she's away. I don't really know. But I really want to see another Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair match, because that match at WrestleMania was one of the best matches of the weekend. It was more than deserving of being in the main event for night 1 of WrestleMania 37. And if it wasn't for that main event of night 2, which, to be honest, saved night 2 of WrestleMania with Edge, Daniel Bryan, and Roman Reigns, it would have been the match of the weekend. It was just that good. It really was. So I want to see another Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair match. I think a lot of people did, because it was very, very good. So looks to be 2 big names returning on that show. Now, let's transition from SmackDown to Raw. Now, Raw last night, if you watched it, we did a live stream reaction after the show. Man, it was bad. I mean, man, it was really, really bad. A really bad show. I can't put it better than that. If you want to see my sort of in time or just immediate reaction to that, you can check it out on the channel. It's worth watching. So there's a lot going on when it comes to Raw. Obviously, Alexa Bliss wasn't on the show last night, and we kind of have a reason now to explain her absence. Now, Alexa Bliss was reportedly backstage for last night's edition of Monday Night Raw. She was not used on camera. This is according to PW Insider. Now, it's rumored that Bliss and Lily are behind the recent explosions that have been going off during recent matches for the women's tag team titles. The latest explosion, of course, went off last night's show and injured Reginald, and which upset Shayna Baszler. Now, Bliss revealed on Instagram yesterday that she had an emergency earlier in the day with Larry, who is her pet pig, and unfortunately there was some really sad news when it comes to Larry, which we'll touch on in a second. Now, it's been reported that a good portion of the script for the first hour of this week's edition of Raw was not set in stone until around 35 to 45 minutes before Raw hit the air on the USA Network. There was said to be a lot of, quote, ripping up of the Raw script throughout the day on Monday, which led to a few rematches on this week's show. A few. I guess there is a lot of script ripping up every week on Raw, because it's rematches every single week, and there's going to be rematches next week. So I guess they're already ripping up the script. It's kind of like they get to half an hour before the show goes on the air, and they go, oh, we don't have a script. Well, what do? They go, well, just use last week's, and they put that in. That's what they do. Raw is a constant repeat. It's a rerun of scripts about 3 or 4 weeks ago, because they've just been finalized now 3 or 4 weeks ago. I mean, it really is. It really is. It's just... It doesn't surprise me. Sometimes I like to play this game. You can play this game as well. When you're waiting for Raw to go on the air, and you might be doing whatever you're doing. You might be, watching something on your phone, watching something on your iPad, or just scrolling through social media, interacting with people online, getting ready for Raw to come on the air on a Monday. It's always fun to look at your watch or to look at a clock, wherever it is, find the time, and if it's around half an hour or 45 minutes before Raw, it's always fun to look at that and think to yourself, right now, the Raw script is being written. Right now, the Raw script is being finalized, or is being decided, or it's being changed, and all that kind of stuff. And you're thinking, this is $1 billion publicly traded company that is worth, again, billions of dollars, and they've got record revenue and record profits. At the heart of it should be its product, should be its television product, and about 30 minutes before it goes on the air, they're changing the script. They're rewriting the second and third hour whilst the first hour is on. That is craziness. It's not surprising, and it reflects in the product. It really reflects in the product. It makes you wonder that if they're settling on what we got on Monday, how bad was the original script? Seriously, how bad was the original script if that's what we're getting? And it's unbelievable. Honestly, it really is unbelievable. Now, I spoke about Alexa Bliss and the reason she missed Raw. Well, she has taken to Instagram today to announce that her pet pig, Larry, has unfortunately passed away. Bliss wrote, quote, on the day before his 4th birthday, this morning, Larry Steve gained his angel wings. I'm so sorry we couldn't find you the help you needed in time. Some people didn't agree to help you, but I want you to know, Larry, your life mattered. We are completely heartbroken. Now, on Monday, as I mentioned, Bliss revealed that she was seeking an emergency vet that could specifically treat pigs after her regular pig vet refused to treat Larry Steve in his worsening condition. Bliss asked fans and peers to recommend a pig vet that would be willing to help her beloved pig. Now, a few years ago, Bliss compared her pet pig to a 4-year-old child that constantly throws temper tantrums, especially if you don't feed him at the same time every day. She also referred Larry Steve as a very vegan pig that loves carrots. As I mentioned, Bliss was backstage for last night's Raw, but I would assume this might be the reason as to her absence because of the stuff going on at home. Yeah, some of the comments I've seen on social media I think have been ridiculous about this. People can say it's trivial and people can laugh or mock or whatever, but at the end of the day it's a pet, and if you've got a pet you'll know the attachment to the pet, and it's horrible to lose a pet, and it's horrible, and obviously it sucks for Alexa Bliss, and I can only imagine the pain that she's going through right now. Let's talk about talent relations, because of course recently there was a massive backstage shakeup when it comes to talent relations. Mark Carrano, Trash Bag Gates, Mickie James, all that kind of stuff. It was a real big news story with how, I guess, badly that department was being run, and for a long time. And don't get me wrong, talent relations is a heat spot in the sense that no one can win. No one can win when they're in there because you've got to do the firing. You can do the hiring. You can give people the great news of we're going to sign you or we're going to give you a contract. But a lot of the times with talent relations, it's the heat spot because you have to deliver the message that the company is letting them go when it's not really your decision to. It's a horrible position to be in. But there was a recent shakeup when it comes to talent relations with the firing of Mark Carrano, and Jason Jordan and John Cone were put into positions in that department, and they are reportedly receiving rave reviews for their recent work in the WWE talent relations department after being tasked with additional responsibilities. As I mentioned, it was reported back in April that Cone, who has worked as a WWE referee for years, was promoted to talent relations second in command under John Laurinaitis following the firing of Mark Carrano, which came after the Mickie James trash bag debacle. It was also reported that Jordan had taken over Laurinaitis' former role as lead producer, overseeing all of the WWE producers at TV tapings. In an update, John Cone has been receiving high marks from WWE wrestlers and is well liked in the new role so far. This is according to PW Insider. It was also noted that Jason Jordan is said to be excellent with his new responsibilities. Now, it was noted there have been some additions to the staff in the talent relations department with new non-wrestling personnel. John Laurinaitis took control of the talent relations department earlier this year, moving up from his role as lead producer. The shake-up back in April also saw Adam Pearce get promoted to a new role of director of live events. Pearce was set to continue producing WWE matches in his new role while also helping Jordan oversee other producers. Now, Jason Jordan's WWE status, of course, has been a topic of discussion for years at this point after he suffered a severe neck injury in February of 2018. He's been out of the ring ever since, while it has been reported that times that he's been working towards an in-ring return, but it looks like at this point he's settled into a non-wrestler role. I know lots of people like to talk about Jason Jordan and could he ever come back and all that kind of stuff. Look, that injury at this point happened 3 years ago, over 3 years ago, and he's still not, I guess they would think, WWE Medical in the position to return to the ring. I know we spoke about Edge earlier, and I know you could say, well, Edge came back, why couldn't Jason Jordan? And Jason Jordan's a young guy. That is all very, very true, but look, he settled into a role that arguably has way more longevity in the company than he would have had previously. I don't know what Jason Jordan's success would have been. I felt like he was finding his groove as Kurt Angle's kid on television, and the tag team with Seth Rollins and the whiny child that was eventually going to turn heel. He was going to feud with Kurt Angle at WrestleMania, all that kind of stuff. Who knows what the career would have looked like for Jason Jordan? We will never know. We will never know what that would have looked like. But it's kind of a situation, and this has been a case for quite a few people over the years when they realize, actually, if you can get your feet under the table as a producer, as an agent, on the creative team, or in a backstage senior position, or just in a backstage role, you can end up being with the company if you play your cards right, if you're good at your job, if you're well liked, and obviously there's a political nature to it as well, if you play nice. But if you get it right, you can be with that company for 15, 20 years in that role. Who's to say not even longer with Jason Jordan, given how young he is? And if he's getting rave reviews from people inside the company, that's great as well. Because again, you have to remember, this is a young guy. If he's going to be lead producer and he's going to be overseeing other producers that maybe are far more experienced than him, certainly in a producer role or in the professional wrestling industry and putting matches together and all that kind of stuff, and he's overseeing them, that's a really difficult spot to be put into, sort of politically in the company as well. So the fact that he's earning the respect and he's getting rave reviews from that, that's great. And when it comes to John Cone in talent relations, if he's getting rave reviews, it's a really difficult spot to be into, talent relations. I don't envy anyone that's in there because, like I said, it's a tough role. Now, I think there was some concern when it was announced previously that John Laurinaitis was back to overseeing talent relations, because if you've seen any shoot interview that took place in the 2000s or the late 2000s or whatever, you would have heard the horror stories about John Laurinaitis as talent relations, especially given that he had to follow Jim Ross, who was, I mean, unbelievable in that role as talent relations, signed some of the biggest and most successful stars in WWE history, oversaw that talent relations department during a massively successful period for WWE. Nobody really has a bad thing to say that much. I mean, there's a couple, there always is going to be because it's a heat spot, but a lot of people have great things to say about Jim Ross in that position, and maybe it's just difficult to be the guy that follows the guy, in the sense that John Laurinaitis, people didn't like him in that role, and there was a lot of horror stories, and I think there was some people sort of shuddering and going, here we go, when it was announced that he was going to be back into that position earlier this year. But, you know, if you've got a great team around you, which it looks like in terms of John Cone, and if the key thing in that role is if talent's happy, that's it. It's talent relations. Your role is to liaison with the talent, to make sure they are happy, to get them from A to B, or any kind of issues that they have. It's to make sure that they're happy, and if talent's happy, they're doing a great job. So it's if anything, it's quite nice to actually hear some positives coming out of talent relations and backstage stuff when it comes to WWE. So long may it continue, because everyone just wants everyone to be happy, right? I know it's probably not good for views and clicks online, but that is interesting. Now, speaking of backstage stuff, I mean, talk about a contrast here. Drake Wurtz. Yes, we've got an update on Drake Wurtz, because former NXT referee Drake Wurtz is apparently resuming his in-ring career now that he's no longer with WWE. Now, of course, Wurtz was released last Wednesday along with several other NXT talents due to budget cuts. Now, he took to Instagram over the weekend and teased a ring return by posting 2 photos from his wrestling days. He then announced on Monday he will be returning to in-ring action on Saturday, June 26 in Orlando, Florida at the Takedown Trafficking, a benefit for bikers against trafficking event. I mean, not a lot more needs to be said about this guy, to be honest. Once he was released by WWE, he changed, I think it's his Instagram photo. I don't follow him. I don't recommend that you do either. He changed his photo from him being with all of these NXT referees to him holding a gun, which probably says a lot, I guess, about his mindset right now. People, I guess, forget about him that he was a very famous, but he was a wrestler prior to becoming a referee of WWE. He was a deathmatch wrestler, which, of course, the whole deathmatch scene is kind of in the news at the moment, especially with that Dark Side of the Ring episode with Nick Gage. And I don't know if he's going to go back to doing that. I don't know how that necessarily looks. If him being this whole, you know, rah, 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 and then just bleeding all over the place, I don't know. But it's like I said before, there was lots of discussion before, wasn't there, of people saying he'll never wrestle again or he'll never compete in the industry again. And it's like I said before, I hate to say I told you so on this one, but it's always the way. It's always the way. If promoters feel that there is money to be made, or if there's, in his case, if there's a cause he wants to fight on, Lord knows he's got enough, then the people will book him. People will book him. And people within the company, don't get this wrong. People within the company, I'm sure, have the same mindset when it comes to Drake Wurtz. I'm sure they share the same beliefs. So the reason that I think he got fired possibly was due to the budget cuts, but also because it was spilling over into the workplace. He was calling into these school board meetings wearing an NXT shirt in the Performance Center, which is unacceptable. I mean, you know, say what you will about his political beliefs and all that kind of stuff, which, in my opinion, are ludicrous and I think are crazy. But once you start doing it at work, that's when a problem comes. And also there were people reportedly that didn't feel comfortable working around him, especially if he's against getting vaccinated and wearing masks and all that kind of stuff in a pandemic where you're in close quarters with people. That's unacceptable. I mean, it's unacceptable. You can have your own views on it, but if your co-workers don't feel safe with you, that's a problem. And look, I think you would wonder who would want to work with him going forward on the independent scene, because again, if he's refusing to wear masks or get vaccinated or anything like that, surely they would be worried about working with him. I don't know if I really want to work with this guy. I don't know if I feel safe right? That would be a concern for me. I guess he's going to perform at events like this where everyone's in the same mindset as him, so it doesn't matter. I don't know, but it doesn't surprise me that he's going to continue working because, like I said, it's the professional wrestling industry, right? Keith Lee, we have an update on Keith Lee. Keith Lee, as I mentioned, has been doing a couple of tweets recently talking about his future amidst his WWE absence at the moment. Now, Raw superstar Keith Lee took to Twitter yesterday afternoon with another message for his supporters. He had this to say, quote, "To the people offering uplifting words, know that I appreciate you greatly and worry not when I say I am #limitless, I mean it. I will try to find a way to explain everything in the most efficient way possible. Just give me a little more time." Now, Lee also responded to a fan who said he can't do moonsaults from the third rope. This was so ridiculous. There was a video basically highlighting all of these big guys throughout history that could do moonsaults from the top rope. So whether it was Keith or just moonsaults in general, it was Keith Lee, Bam Bam Bigelow, Vader was in there, that kind of stuff. Keith Lee was on there and he does the moonsault from the second rope, which is arguably more impressive because there's less room. I mean, when from the top rope you just kind of have to fall backwards, and there's a lot more room, for safety wise. Keith Lee does it from the second rope, which is, to be honest, far more impressive. Anyway, someone messaged him and was like, I can't even do it from the top rope. And Keith Lee responded back to him going, a quick Google or YouTube search would have kept you from looking like an imbecile, and you're right, you're not a wrestler. Stay in your lane. Now, obviously, there's lots of discussion at the moment when it comes to Keith Lee, his future. Someone asked Mia Yim what the situation was with Keith Lee, and she was right. She said, quote, "It's no one's business. Please be patient and let it be." That's it. And we've spoken about it a couple of times here on the channel, what's going on with Keith Lee, when's he going to come back, what's the situation with him. Again, we don't know. All we can report are what's being reported out there at the moment. And if we try and guess that speculation, then that's not fair and that's not right, especially when it's an injury or an illness or anything like that. To speculate on anyone's medical condition is not fair. And surely with everything that's happened over the course of the last 12 months, we would know that that's not right to do. It's private and confidential for a reason. If stuff gets reported from accurate sources, not from people that make stuff up, but from accurate sources and accurate journalists and from Keith Lee himself, all that kind of stuff, that's when you can talk about it. But until we know that kind of stuff, we can't. All we can say is that he's out with an undisclosed reason. We don't know why. Obviously, it's very apparent through his Twitter messages, he's frustrated. We know he's trying to get cleared. We know he wants to talk with his fans about it. I wouldn't be surprised if he was told by WWE, look, don't go public with it. We'll try and figure it out. He's obviously growing more and more frustrated, but when the time's right, like he said, he will inform us. He will tell us what the situation is. All we can hope is, as fans of professional wrestling and Keith Lee, all we can hope is that he can return soon, safely, and continue the work that he was doing. Was he having the best time on Monday Night Raw? No. But given the state of affairs on that brand right now, they need him so badly, because if he was back right now, I have no doubts he would be in the WWE Championship picture, because they need top babyfaces. Would he be the WWE champion? That's debatable. Probably not. Anything can happen, but probably not. Would he be in the picture? Absolutely. He was at the start of the year with Drew McIntyre. He would be right now with Bobby Lashley. When he had to drop out with the injury or illness or whatever in the first place, he was going to win the United States Championship. They have plans for him. They're certainly very high on him. So the hope is, when it comes to Keith Lee, is that he returns soon. And it's really as simple as that. Finally, talking about SummerSlam, because obviously, there's lots of discussion at the moment with SummerSlam. Where's it going to be held? We know it's going to have fans in attendance. The general consensus is, this was reported by Sports Illustrated and the Wrestling Observer newsletter and Fightful, that it's going to be taking place in, how do you say this, Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, it was noted last week how SummerSlam is scheduled for August 22, with Vegas being the leading candidate to host the event. Now, it hasn't been confirmed by WWE, it must say, but it's been reported by the likes of Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter that the announcement is expected to be made shortly about the event taking place at Allegiant Stadium in Vegas. Now, it's been reported for months that WWE wanted an outdoor stadium for its biggest pay-per-view of the summer, and while Allegiant Stadium does not have a retractable roof, it does allow for an outdoor setting. It has a special roof and doors, and obviously it allows a big portion of social distancing. You could get a lot of people in there. Now, it's speculated now that WWE may have to reevaluate the SummerSlam venue plans now that the big Manny Pacquiao versus Errol Spence Jr. PBC Fox boxing match has been announced for the night before SummerSlam on Saturday, August 21. Now, WWE is now no longer the biggest show in town for that weekend, and they may actually struggle to fill the stadium with 60,000 fans. Vegas is traditionally a tough market for pro wrestling anyway, and it will already be tough to sell to reach a sold-out crowd for SummerSlam. Now, Allegiant has a capacity for 65,000 fans for NFL games, 61,000 for soccer games, but can be expanded to up to 72,000 people. WWE could always run the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, which has a capacity of 15,000 people, but one of the first SmackDown on Fox episodes took place in that venue and only drew 7,000 fans. WWE could also try and run the MGM Grand Garden Arena and the Mandalay Bay Event Center, but those venues would be too small for a special event like SummerSlam. Now, the idea behind SummerSlam 2021 was to hold it in a tourist city where they could expect fans to fly in to help fill up the stadium. WWE has also discussed Allegiant Stadium as a potential WrestleMania host city for the near future. So there's a concern, I guess, if that the Manny Pacquiao-Errol Spence Jr. fight is going to happen the night before or the day before. They might not be able to fill up the stadium, which is true. Traditionally, those boxing tickets can be very expensive in Vegas. I suppose it's the way you perceive it, isn't it? Does that take away the chances of people filling up the stadium, or does it have more people in town as tourists for Vegas during that time period that they could then go and watch the WWE? I don't know, and I don't know the answer to that one. They might delay it. They might delay it a week. I mean, does it really matter if it takes place on, Sunday the 29th of August? I guess it depends when Double or Nothing happens, because Double or Nothing is usually the start of September, end of August too. So it's going to be interesting with this one. It certainly would be frustrating for WWE that they put all of these plans in place. Now, they didn't announce anything, but just as they're about to announce things, that things change. That would be very frustrating for WWE. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that one. Again, I think it's the way you look at it. One way you could look at it certainly is it takes possible attendees away, or possibly it brings more people in town. Depends how you look at it. But it would be a very expensive weekend for anyone that goes there. So we'll have to wait and see. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all of these WWE news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know what your thoughts are about all of these WWE news stories today. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. It really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestle News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.